Everyone Saranai. May the noble triple gem bless you all. Everyone Saranai are answer. Please accept my humble worship. This is Buddhotpado time, the reawakening of Buddhotpado. It's time to open your eyes. This time is very precious. All beings born into this world will find solace only in Nibbana. This is the time you can end your suffering, where the liberation of mind happens. Now you can learn the teachings of Buddha, which is non-solved Dhamma, and Buddha's correct method on how to practice the Vidarshana meditation. This pure and correct view of Buddha. You can visit our websites www.buddhotpadodhamma.com, and also you can practice Dhamma in one of our Methmal Arana. Today, our Buddhotpada Dhamma friend will talk about how the mind is created. Over to you.
Advanced online. First of all, let me pay homage to the Buddha, the fully awakened one. Let me also pay my respects to Buddhotpada and Mahansa. Edwan Saranagi. Those of you who are listening to this talk can be from all walks of life. Some of you may have heard of these teachings. Some may have had exposure to Buddhism or to other varying types of doctrines, or perhaps to streams of Buddhist teachings such as Theravada or Mahayana, maybe Tibetan Buddhism. And some of you may be familiar with meditation generally, or mindfulness retreats that are gaining popularity around the world. And some of you may not have much of an idea of what we're going to talk about today, and have randomly come across this YouTube link and happen to listen to it. For all of you listening to this, there is something you have in common, or we have in common, that we are going to explore today. I invite you to listen with an open mind and reflect on what you hear. You don't need to take it too seriously, but you don't need to take it too lightly either. Reflection is key. I think, therefore I am. Now, most of you may have heard these famous words by the French philosopher René Descartes. Whilst this maxim has had several interpretations, it broadly conveys the Western thinking that if some object or entity is capable of thinking, then there is a soul there, a self called me or I, who is capable of thinking. There is an assumption that there is a mind, and therefore there is an I or self also there. Now, if we think about the world, we all strive to lead happy lives, free from pain and sorrow. from our childhood days, we have been taught to work hard and to achieve, various goals as we pass through this journey called life. At school, we go through all kinds of experiences, passing exams, competing at sports events, high school exams, more competitions and competitiveness of all sorts. Then we go on to higher tertiary education, gaining employment, finding a means to live. Then gaining promotions, progression through various career paths. And then comes wanting to settle down, so marriage, followed by children. And so the list goes on and on. Behind all this is mankind's will and yearning to be happy. For happiness. But throughout doing all this, can you turn back and reflect on a moment you have been truly happy and at peace? Or has your happiness always been dependent on something else or someone else being there in your life? You might say I was happy during the first few years of my marriage. I thought my spouse was kind, considerate, loving, etc. But he or she turned out to be, something else. Or you may think my last job was great until I got a new boss who made working in that company living hell. No matter what I did right, you could say she or he found something to blame me for. So much so that I had to resign. Or if you look back over time, you may recall other numerous instances in your life where you've been happy when you got your first job, the day you met your loved one, the day you got your driver's license, and the day your child was born, etc. Now, can you start seeing a kind of pattern forming here? We always rely on something external or someone external to help us be happy. Why is that? The Buddha said, happiness and peace lies within you. Only you can create your own happiness. And yet, how does that come about? If you stop to think for a moment, you will realize that mankind lives by the premise that the world that meets his eye is real. Now one may wonder, how do we react with this external world? Well, that's through your six senses. The eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, body, and mind. With your eyes, you observe the world. Your ears, you hear sounds. With the nose, you experience smell. With the tongue, you experience taste. With the body, touch and sensations relating to that. And finally, with the mind, you have thoughts. So you take in this world through these sense faculties. You experience the world through these senses. So for you or for us, these faculties, the eye, the ears, nose, body, tongue, etc., are crucial to experience the world. They are real to us. They are larger than life, so to speak. The Buddha said, Salayatana loko loko, Salayatana nirodho nibbano. Salayatana meaning senses. Loko means world. Your senses are your world, basically. That's what it says. Salayatana loko loko. You have no world beyond your senses. Everything you see, think, hear, or know about this world, you take in from these six senses. Consider an example where, one of your family members or a good friend, perhaps living overseas, has met with an untimely death. Yet for some reason, you have not got the news till about a month later. Now, as long as you don't know about it, as long as you didn't know about it, you're fine. You may not even remember that person and will be happily getting about your life. Or you may even remember that person and talk to somebody in your household about that person at home, not knowing that all that time the person has long died. Now, finally, at some point when you come to know about this tragedy, then, and only then, is it not that your world comes crashing down. You are devastated, you're sad, you start crying, you're miserable, you can't stop thinking of that person. Now, how did this come about? When the person actually died, these feelings didn't come on. The person died 1 month ago, and yet you were oblivious to it. It is only when you come to know, either a friend has called you, so it's over the phone, news getting relayed to you, so that's sound. And then you realize, so it's either one or several senses by which you get to know something. And it is only at that point that you start absorbing it. And then the whole thing becomes real to you. Because you experience the world via your six senses, it is only what you experience through those that become your world. Now let me take this a little bit further. Do you actually experience the world, or do you think you actually experience the world through your eyes, the physical eyes or the flesh eyes, ears, nose, tongue, etc.? Now consider a time when you are, say, fast asleep. Can you see anything or hear anything? The same goes for your nose and the sense of smell. Now, whilst your eyes are closed, your ears are not. Neither is your nose, for that matter. Yet in your deep sleeps, sometimes, even amidst a lot of noise and background noise going on around you or in the house, you have happily slept undisturbed. I, for one, have definitely done that. Now, whilst you were asleep, someone can even hold a bottle of perfume near you and you would have no sense of that smell. Strange, isn't it? The Buddha said, the senses that we commonly think to be our physical sense faculties are really not so. So what their function is, we'll come to in a moment. The Buddha taught that things that we think we see, hear, smell, or touch are not based on anything that we come across externally, but something that gets created in our own minds. In other words, you're actually not seeing an object outside, but only thinking that you've seen an object outside. Just look out of the window wherever you are now, or look around you and focus on some object. It can be a tree, for example, or a car parked outside, or a cat, or something in your kitchen, if you're in the kitchen, like a plate or knife. Or it can be a person walking along the road. If we take an example, the tree example, now consider how you came about seeing that. What your eyes saw was just a vision or an image, a shape, yet you called it a tree. Now, how is that possible? If, for example, you show an infant the same shape and image, will the infant be able to call it a tree? No, right? The infant does not recognize a tree. So why not? Why is it that you can name the object before your eyes as a tree and the infant cannot? You'll then realize that we have, in the course of our lives, from our childhood days, been taught, coached, trained to name various objects around us, such as mother, father, sister, church, school, cricket, house, garden, etc. For each of the objects, animate or inanimate, we have given labels, names, so that we can feel as if they exist around us. And socially interact with these persons that we have given names to and objects in the world. Use the objects in the world, all by the use of conventional names and terms, so that we can communicate with each other by the use of language. Yet what you call a tree in English will not be called so by, say, a Chinese person or a Korean person. They will not know what you're talking about. And if I say Ganga, for example, which means river in Sinhalese, and native Sinhalese in Sri Lanka, Those of you who don't understand the Sinhalese language will have no idea what I just said. You may say, no, that is called the river. So, is the river correct or the name Ganga correct? If we call the same thing by different names, then what is the truth? Can the truth have different names or different versions? Buddha said the I is not the physical I, but the act of seeing. The same is true for the ear. He didn't refer to the physical ear or the flesh ear as salayatana or sensor, but the act of hearing, because it's a construct. It is a construct because it happens at that moment. It is not something that is there forever. It is something that gets constructed at that moment. The same is true for the rest of the sense faculties. The touch, smell, taste, and cognition. They are all mental creations coming about, getting constructed at that moment. But how does that happen? Well, coming across these true, authentic teachings of the Buddha is indeed a rarity. These doctrines have been obscured for a long time. Other more traditional teachings and misinterpretations of the Buddha's teachings. Fortunately for us and the world, these true teachings, authentic teachings, are now available and have been revealed in its correct form through Buddhotpada discourses. Coming back to our discussion around senses, everything that is experienced in the world, we think is via senses. Can you think of any other way you experience this? No. The six senses are the inputs or the channels by which we experience the world. So what you experience from these senses then becomes your world. If the senses are no longer there, then there is no world. Now you may know that there are various species out there with either less or more senses than human beings. Example, the bat can fly in the night because it has some kind of radar-like vision that obviously humans don't. Bats, as I understand, use something called echolocation, and so do dolphins, if I recall correctly. And what that means is I think it sends out some kind of ultrasonic, some type of ultrasonic waves with high frequency, which allows them to navigate away from objects and locate their way around. You may have also heard that cows don't see all colors like humans do. And bees have a different type of vision as well. If you think about our hearing, we can only hear sounds between 20 and 20,000 hertz. If we know that there are other animals who can hear far better than us. Cats and dogs definitely have vastly improved hearing abilities than man. And we know that there are animals out there that have a much stronger sense of smell than we do. Yet us human beings think that the world that we see is the real thing, the real deal. Now, can you see that we have a myopic view of the world? And that our world, as we call it, is limited only to the vision, sounds, smell, taste, and touch that we are capable of experiencing. For the limitations of the human body. So coming back to the function of these physical faculties, what do they really do? The eye is only a camera. It does not convey back to you anything that it had contact with. Neither, for that matter, does the object that you saw. Then how is that you know you saw something? It is a thought that tells you that you saw something, or heard something, or tasted something, or smelled something. If the mind doesn't tell you what you saw, or heard, or smelled, you are incapable of recognizing it. It's the same story with the ears. What really happens is that sound occurs due to vibration in the eardrum, which then creates a sensation from which perception happens and ear consciousness occurs. And is reinterpreted along with other sensory perceptions to make up mind consciousness. Or to keep this very simple, to create one thought. Varied sound vibrations create varied sensations, and each of these combined with other types of consciousness are given different names in this conventional world. Example, sound of a dog barking, a bell ringing, a child crying, a bird chirping, and so on. Vision, sound, smell are all things that get created in our mind. They are not actually something outside that we are taking in. It's a formation, a false sense of formation that we believe to be true. The Buddha has said, Rupantiko aiso rupang vadet. Rupanya means company. What that means is vibration. Where there is a vibration, and as long as we have functioning sensors, the vibrations give rise to sensations occurring within us as well. The act of seeing comes about by vibrations occurring in our eye, and the act of hearing is vibrations occurring in a different way in the ear. The same with other senses. The vibration happening within the eye or the eardrum creates a telepathic reaction to the light, sound, smell. And these vibrations then come together to form a mental image or mind consciousness. Now, when you see an object, you don't see the color or the shape separately. You just straight away see a chair or a table or a house. These are what you call chitta rupa, or mental pictures. And it is by associating those and considering or believing them to be real that you get about your daily life. Now, this is the path of the ignorant, the anusota, and not patisota, which is the path to Nibbana or true awakening. The person who understands the mind for what it really is, by learning and understanding Sakti Darshana or the true Buddhist teachings or Buddhist philosophy, will then no longer believe that these sensory perceptions, that this world that we think we see outside is true. You have heard or you may have heard or experienced the windows of your house or home rattling when there's thunder and lightning above during a storm. Now, how is that possible? Now, this is again caused by a reaction wherever two things that are of the same frequency occurs. The vibration in one can cause vibration in the other if they are of the same frequency. You have noticed, I'm sure, how when there are, continuous streaks of lightning during a thunderstorm, particularly at night, how the entire sky gets lit up almost like daylight. Because it continues to happen at a speed which is unfathomable to us humans. We think there is like a never-ending stream of light. We mistakenly believe that the light is coming from outside, whereas it is only the result of vibrations occurring at an incredible speed and manifesting itself in different shapes and forms and colors in our mind's eye through that process that I explained earlier. And similar to these different vibrations cause us to experience other faculties as well. Example, sound, or through the act of hearing, smell, touch, taste, etc. The feeling or sensations that we get from these vibrational patterns occurring in different faculties are then called eye consciousness, ear consciousness, taste consciousness, etc. When all these varied types of consciousness gets combined, another type of consciousness gets created in our minds, and that's called mind consciousness or thought. If you consider the act of eating a pineapple, a piece of pineapple, shall I say, The only signal that comes from the eye is the color and shape of the pineapple. Color perhaps orange, and an oblong shape, and the oblong shape of a pine. To your nose, you'd only get a smell. If you cut a piece and eat it, you'll only encounter some kind of taste. However, we call this a pineapple. Now, how did that happen? To understand this, you have to go back in time and think, how did I label this as a pineapple? Was it last year that I came to know about it? No. Was it 5 years ago? No. And like that, you keep going back in time when you realize that, probably was in my childhood that I was taught, either maybe in nursery or in school, that there is such a fruit. This is its shape. This is its color. And when you eat it, these are the sensations that you get, and so on and so forth. So each time thereafter that you encounter either the picture, smell, or taste of a pineapple, it then sets off a spark or telepathic reaction, which gives you the thought or mental image that you're either seeing a pineapple or smelling it or tasting it or touching it. Now, when you initially taught this, you believed it to be true. So when you encounter it now, even one of those sensations, not even all, just one of those sensations, when you encounter one of those sensations, there is an immediate telepathic reaction, and you think, or you get the thought, or the thought of a pineapple flashes through your mind. Now, the pineapple is a label given in this conventional world. And it's a conversion, really, of all the senses and the vibrations and perceptions that have occurred to a final mental picture, a combination that falsely gave us a mental picture called pineapple. It is only a fabrication of the mind. The construction of these elements into different forms are called sankhara. We get 3 types of sankhara: kaya, vachi, and mano sankhara. Kaya means physical, to do with bodily movements. Vachi means verbal expression. And mano sankhara means mental construction. But all of these, sabba sankhara, sabba means all, are mental formations, and therefore only an illusion. So the cause is vibration. Starts off with a vibration, and the result is vision, or color, or light, or sound, or smell, or taste. The senses. Then the cause then becomes the vision, or the sound. And the effect, the result of that, becomes the chair, or the bus, or tree. Whatever that combined mental picture that you get. In the same fashion, every object that you have come across from your childhood days has been taught to you, been given a label, but finally you realize it's only a construct. So the mind is nothing other than a series of fleeting images racing across at a speed faster than anything you can imagine. Racing across our mind, I should say, at a speed faster than anything that you can imagine. Just a collection of thoughts collectively is called the mind. We use mind and thought, the words mind and thought interchangeably. Understanding the true Dhamma is essentially understanding the mind and how it works. Seeing the truth means understanding the full functioning of the mind. This manifested world is really created by our own mind. That is why the Buddha said, the six senses themselves are the world. Salayatana loko loko. Chittena niyati loko chittena niyati. Beauty and ugliness that you see are not in the outer objects, but in your mind. Humans are trapped within this delusion, the delusion of their mind, and are unable to comprehend the fact that you are actually not seeing anything outside, but just experiencing a thought that you saw something. Example, when a doorbell rings, you don't actually hear it ring. The doorbell does not tell you it rang. Your physical ear does not tell you. You only heard the sound. And based on past labels that you attach to it, the type of noise, the tone, or the type of ring, a thought occurs to you that you heard the doorbell ring. So in other words, you don't really hear as such, but you think you hear. We associate or interact only with a thought, really. For example, a mango tree is a thought. An apple tree is a thought. The same is true for other objects or figures such as mother, father. Whatever word we use, they are all in reality just mental formations or chitta rupa. Now, though we say we see, it's actually sound that we associate with that object. Why is that? That's because we've been taught every color, shape, or image, smell, touch, by a label attached to it. We've given it a name. We call it a name. And we've attached sound to it as well. The sound also is a vibration. It is also not something permanent. It's not something coming from outside, but something that occurs in us due to vibration, that occurs in the eardrum due to vibration. Now consider this example. Let's say there's a woman in front of you, and the woman's husband, brother, and say the woman's son are also standing around this woman. Now, if you ask the husband to identify the woman, he will say she's his wife. The brother will say, she's my sister. And the son will say, this is my mother. Now all three of them see the same figure, the same shape, color, and if they touch her physique is the same. Yet how did the same figure become mother for one person, sister to another, and wife to another? Now, which of these then is the truth? Now, you may say that they are all right. Each answer is right. But isn't that relative to that person? And is that then correct? But can there be more than one truth? The truth can have only one answer, isn't it? So you can gather that the images we see, objects and persons, including, and this one will be a little hard to swallow, even ourselves, are all just made up mental pictures. And because mankind does not understand how the mind is formed and what exactly is the mind, and cannot fathom this, they're always creating man-made illusions of pure ignorance. And they continue out of ignorance, or what you call avijja, to perpetuate their journey through samsara. The samsara meaning the endless cycle of birth and death. So if they do something, it's called kaya sankara, we referred to earlier. And if they think something, that's mano sankara. Again, under the false belief that there is the notion called the world, there is an I, and so on. But they don't know that. And they think there is a me here. And there is a world out there due to the objects and things they associate. So suddenly there are things in this world, and then there's also a me in this world. The truth that you will come to understand when you learn and understand the true Buddhist philosophy, or the true Dhamma, and the correct meaning of dependent origination, paticcasamuppada, is that we are unable to experience this outside world, or what we think we think is the outside world is the same. What you are in effect only experiencing is a sensory world or illusory world that these sense perceptions and various consciousness sort of have come together and formed, but is basically made up of nothing. Consider the example of one or few balls of fire being rotated at speed. Now, once it reaches a particular speed, you get the notion that there is a ring of fire, but is there an actual ring of fire there? Isn't that just an illusion due to the sheer speed of light in which the balls of fire are being rotated? Can you see that your mind is actually playing tricks on you? If you think about it, all the things that you see or hear around you are experienced in the same way. Understanding this is called Satyajnana. Now, just like our example of the mango tree, the pineapple that we talked of before, all these stem from a flash of light or sound or touch, taste, smell that are first due to vibrations as we described earlier in your senses. So each of these images and sensory perceptions, which we said again earlier, are given a label and are taught to us in our childhood. In nursery, we are taught colors, red, blue, orange. We are shown pictures and asked to name them. We call them like apple, monkey, mother, father, house, etc. You're always shown an object and asked to name these. And suddenly you get this notion that there are all these things outside in the world. And not only do you learn about them and understand them, recognize them, and their functions and features separately, but also you then get the notion that there is a world that exists around you. You get the sense of being alive in this so-called world. And it doesn't end there. Then you begin to get the notion that there is an I here, or a person who is seeing these objects, hearing these sounds, and experiencing this world. A duality gets created, and importantly, you start believing that there is a person here, a soul, or I, me, myself, gets created. A false sensation, but a sensation nevertheless, that then starts permeating, that mankind unfortunately has embraced as being true due to ignorance. And the soul or Atma or ego are born. There is no firm basis for this. It's the wrong view, what we call Sakkaya Ditthi. It's important to understand that this is not your doing or anyone else's doing, the way the senses work and the sensory perceptions occur. This is all occurring through a system. It's a natural process. It's a system in operation. The functioning of the mind is a natural phenomenon. Chitta niyama, we call it. Nobody is activating the phenomenon. Nothing can be done about it. You can't do anything about it, like the system. Even you cannot show the truth to yourself because what you think you are is imaginary, non-existent. Now, we can't deny these illusory experiences, but by understanding it, you see through the illusion, and things that you have given so much value to in your life then lose their value with the gradual realization that there is nothing of essence in them, that they are all made up through our own senses, which we have then got attached to by raga, dvesha, moha, through desire and craving and delusion. Once you learn how the mind is made up of, you will lose the sense of there being a soul, or the feeling that you have a soul, or that there is a soul. It's a fallacy or a false belief. The dissolution of the me sense, the sense of there being a me here, is crucial. No one else can do it for you. On the other hand, you can't do it yourself. The me sense does not exist. It is imaginary and derives power as per your will or thinking patterns. Now, seeing the truth in the present moment is at the core of Buddhist teachings. And if you understand how the mind forms in this moment, you have unraveled the truth. And for the beginning of the end to suffering. Without it, we are always deluded, living in a world which is an illusion. created through avijja or ignorance. So remember that when we say that there are no existent kind of things in this world, it does not mean that things will disappear from one side when one realizes the truth. We go about our lives in the normal way. We see things, we hear things, we interact with our family, so on and so forth. What happens is the value given to external objects, persons, or things, and most importantly, the value you give yourself, gradually dissipates through correct understanding to finally cease at the point of realization of Nibbana. Arahats, or the fully awakened ones, don't become blind, deaf, or dumb. Their senses still work. They still see a tree as a tree, a house as a house, and so on. Yet, no value is given to them because they have realized there's no such thing as a soul. There's no soul or me sense, and there is no sense of I, me, or myself, or mine. The senses and the perceptions that are created are just creations, delusion, and they are by themselves a delusion. Craving ceases, desire ceases. There is no attachment, and there is no duality. All beings who are truly awakened are one for this reason. Right view and insight and awareness is important when you embark on this path to Nibbana. The path to liberation cannot be achieved without having three types of deep wisdom. One, the wisdom of recollection of past minds called Pubbenivasanusati jnana. The second is the wisdom of passing and arising, which is called Chuttupapata jnana. And is also known as the awakening to the moment. Now, this mind does not awaken to the moment without having the wisdom of recollection of past minds, Pubbenivasanusati jnana. One needs to practice vipassana or development of insight and not samatha to understand the mind and transcend it. At the beginning, your reflections will be in a state of savitaka, which is an active state. It helps one to logically argue and understand what the teacher is trying to explain. It's like a contemplative state and a necessary one. This contemplation will make you realize and awaken to the gradual fading of asrava or defilements or killis in different forms and manifestations, which is then the third type of wisdom, asavakkhaya jnana. As you get more advanced, you will reach a state of avitaka, which is beyond thinking, or contemplation, where it is an innate feeling, not a contemplative state. It's a highly advanced state. It's a state of absorption and freedom. The savitaka state will eventually bring you to a semi-savitaka / avitaka kind of state, and then on to an avitaka state. From there, the progression to complete freedom from senses and sense objects, that is ayatana, will happen. Salayatana nirodho nibbano. I hope these reflections of the Dhamma were of use to you. It is a gradual process and needs to be given time. With right effort and right determination, and with the guidance of the correct spiritual teacher, the path to Nibbana will be open to you. Therwan Sarana.
Therwan Sarnai, our Dhamma friend speech is over. Thank you, Adami friend, for your valuable speech. It was a very, very effective speech, and you have covered everything in that 1 hour. So thank you very much. Let me thank our spiritual guidance teacher, Buddha Pado Aryan Mahansa. Terwan Sanna, everyone. Terwan Sanna.